A quick heads up before we dive in this video, I'm currently live on Twitch playing Crab Game with your favorite content creators like Different Fight, Outer Orange, Echo, Crossbone Vanguards, Ben, and many more Vanguard creators. So if you're interested in any of that action, go to twitch.tv/MrTimeLeap and come join the fun while we're playing some mad games. Another week went by, which means we got more support, and one dragon went Super Saiyan, another went Berserk, and the third was very disappointed. Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we're doing the weekly roundup where we take a look at all the Card of the Day reveals for the upcoming set, and we're still in set 4 as we're still at the beginning stages of the reveals. And the reveals of this week were kind of interesting because some of them were quite spicy and pretty generic and very good for multiple ride lines, and some other reveals were very specific and also very underwhelming. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into these reveals and see what the 5 great nations got this time around with the new weekly updates. So first off, let's take a look at the new Dragon Empire reveals, which is Eugene's support, and those are 2 new grade 1s which basically have the same skill that interact with each other, because we have this grade 1, Throwing Bullet of Duststorm Ollie, and Ollie's skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase, choose a Throwing Artillery of Duststorm Dolly on your rearguard circle and you may return it to your hand. Before we're going to talk about this, let's take a look at Dolly, and then you can understand what I'm talking about. So here's Dolly, yet another 8k grade 1, which is of course Throwing Artillery of Duststorm Dolly, and its skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase, choose a Throwing Bullet of Duststorm Ollie on your rearguard circle, and you may return it to your hand. So they have the exact same skill, and basically what they allow you to do is bounce the other card back to your hand. These cards, in my opinion, will probably not see any play, maybe in a budget alternative, because basically what they're doing is these are yet another target for Eugene's rest ability to snipe one of your opponent's units, because you need to rest 2 with Eugene, you choose these 2 specific grade 1s, and then once you retire something, you bounce it back to your hand, and you can call them again in stand, and you negate the minus in value because you need to rest your potential boosters or attackers from Eugene's attack. Honestly, I'm not a fan of this because we already have better cards that can negate the minus of resting your units that don't require you to have a 3 card combo. Because the issue with these cards is that on their own they are literally useless, even if you are able to meet their condition, because you also need to have the other card to even get value of their skill, because they cannot bounce themselves back. So you need to have 2 specific cards on the field on the right situation to actually make them to some value, which is very underwhelming. So yeah, we can skip these cards. So moving on, we're gonna go to Brandt support, and this is new Orfist token support. And we start off with the new grade 2, which is another common, which is Cardinal Noid Negulita. And Negulita has the effect, continues a rearguard circle. Your Shadow Army tokens cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects and cannot be retired by your opponent's card effects. So this is a more blanked protection, because not only does it protect against choosing, it also just protects against retire. So even unchoosable retire, like a field wipe or something, cannot retire these tokens. Currently, I don't think there's a lot of value behind this effect, because there isn't a lot of very massive retire in the format, and this card doesn't protect itself, so it can be moved off of the field and the tokens are vulnerable. And at the same time, right now Orfist uses its own tokens for resource for other skills, so you're gonna sack them off yourself, so you're protecting something that probably won't even survive your own turn. So there's not a lot of value behind the skill right now. However, that said, there could be value behind this card later down the line if Orfist starts to change up again and we suddenly gonna go to a more control aspect where we're gonna spam these tokens on the board and we want to keep them on the board for a longer period of time. Then a card like this could actually matter in that particular instance. So it depends on how the game is going to evolve in the deck itself. This card might or might not see play. Right now, I don't think there's value to be had, but it could definitely change in the future. Now, moving on to a new triple R grade 3 for Orfist, and this is the second triple R for Brandt. And yeah, I didn't realize this was a triple R until way later. So this card, in my opinion, is kind of disappointing, because here we have the grade 3 Cardinal Draco Meslia, and its effect is act on rearguard circle, cost, retire a Shadow Army token, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. If this ability was activated for the 3rd time this turn, this unit gets critical +1 until the end of turn. So basically, you're gonna make this card a big beefy number by just feeding it Shadow Army tokens. Every time it gets an extra 10k, and the 3rd token it gets the extra 10k plus a critical, which makes it potentially a 43k double critical beater. That, in my eyes, doesn't really warrant a trip R value. This could easily have just been a rare or a common. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't really think like a gigantic beater that could potentially get a crit is all that impactful, especially as seeing as you're gonna waste so many Shadow Army tokens into this, whereas all those tokens could have used for retire options, draw power, maybe more control options or anything than just sheer pure power, especially since the tokens themselves are already 15k boosters. So if you're feeding in the booster behind this card into this unit, you actively are losing 5k power on the attack, which is kind of weird. So yeah, unless I'm missing something, of course this does synergize with the over trigger, but is that something you want to play around? I'm not a fan of that all too much, so yeah, maybe this card will see play. I'm not that confident, but I could definitely be overlooking something here. Now, moving on to Stoicheia, we've got some more Zorga support, and one of them is pretty underwhelming, but the other one is potentially very interesting. So first off, we got a great one, which is Tuning Madness, and its effect is continuous rearguard circle. If your drop and binds have a total of 5 or more order cards, this unit gets power plus 5k. This is interesting because it goes towards a new playstyle where it counts the amount of orders that you drop and bind, and the condition is a bit heavy. 5 or more cards is quite a lot, and then only you get 5k. The reason why I say this card is a bit underwhelming because Zorga or Stoicheia already has access to grade 1s that gain 5k and do an extra stuff on top of that. A good example is the grade 1 triple R from set 2, which name I'm currently forgetting, Headhunter, Rogue Headhunter, which is a very good grade 1, and it already gets an extra 5k power. So this feels like a weaker version of the card. So yeah, this is probably a budget option if you want to increase the numbers, but overall I'm not really a fan of this particular card. Now moving on to a grade 2, we've got Darkness Diver, and this card is actually interesting as its effect is auto when this unit is placed on a Vanguard circle or rearguard circle or put on the Guardian circle. Cast Soul Blast 1 and discard an order card from your hand. Draw a card and this unit gets power plus 5k and shield plus 5k until the end of turn. Now, this could be potentially a new ride deck option, as the Zorga ride line is very open for options because they don't need specific ride targets or cards that you need to really ride upon to get their skills. So this could be something that could replace Tyrha's Dragon. And the interesting thing about this particular card is that it can activate on place, but also you can intercept with it, which means it's very versatile. And effectively what it does is it allows you to cycle and use one Soul Blast to either get 5k shield or 5k power for the attack. Honestly, one Soul Blast for that value for the 5k power or shield is not that bad. And the cycle is also pretty good because yes, you need to discard specifically an order card, but the thing with Zorga sometimes is that your hand could be very fake, in the sense that you have a lot of cards, but most of them have orders. You much rather than want to dump a couple of those orders to draw into actual cards that have shield value or do something. And a card like this can help you to facilitate that, because not only can you use it aggressively for an attacker, you can also use it defensively. So while you're guarding it with from hand, you can make your hand better to increase the potential shield value in your hand to survive that potential turn. We haven't seen this before in Zorga where we can use this, and this could definitely help the deck in a certain instance. Now, will it be a staple? Probably not, because Zorga also has the issue where it sometimes doesn't have any orders in their hand, so then this card basically becomes that. It doesn't really do anything. In the early game, the reason why this could potentially be in your right deck, it's very likely because you can open up with an order, and also with the extra draws from Vanguard Chain, you can definitely get some orders, and then this card can set up your drop zone even more, and you can draw into more cards in the early game to potentially get your Persona right, or a better order card, or something else to set up your whole play. So, yeah. This is not that bad. Now, moving on to the fourth nation, we've got Shadow Paladin, and for Shadow Paladin, we've got more Phantom Blaster Dragon support. And we start off with a brand new double R grade 1 in the likes of Knight of Armor Piercing Mugain. Mugain has the effect, although when his unit is placed on a rearguard circle from hand, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, discard a card from your hand, look at the 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 2 unit cards from among them, call them to the rearguard circle as rest, and discard the rest. This is overall a pretty good card because it basically gives you free value. You discard one to get 2 cards on the field. Yes, you need to rest them, so any unplays effect or potential triggers or something like that could be wasted, but to be fair, you don't really care for that, as you just want to retire as many cards as possible. So you're gonna call this, you rest 2 from the top of your deck, and you're gonna sack them off for Phantom Blaster Dragon, and this allows you to negate the potential minuses you're going to do with Phantom Blaster Dragon again. So once again, this just gives you free plus. It doesn't cost you soul, it doesn't cost you counterblast. Overall, a pretty great card. But what's also a great card is a brand new Blitz order for Phantom Blaster Dragon, and this one is quite surprising because it's actually a really powerful Blitz order, as we've got Divine Protection of the Abyss Dragon, which is a grade 3 Blitz order, and its ability reads as: choose one of your Vanguards with Blessed in its card name being attacked, and until the end of the battle, it gets power plus 15k. Then, choose one of your rearguards and you may retire it. If you retire it, it gets power plus 15k. So this is a free Blitz order for Phantom Blaster Dragon that just gives you 15k shield. We've seen this in set 1, this is nothing new, and they were pretty alright, because 15k shield is a lot of shield value in one card, especially with the lower shield value amount in Overdress. But what's crazy about this is that this could potentially be a 30k shield value for effectively free. No counterblast, no soul blast, just for one rearguard. And honestly, that's still a very good trade-off, because in certain instances, those rearguards might mean nothing for you at that point, and it's 15k power for stacking off a rearguard, which in certain instances is just 0 shield value. If it's a grade 1, you cannot intercept with it anyways, so you could just retire it and get 15k shield extra. If it's a grade 2, it could have been a 5k interceptor, but by retiring it with this skill, you get 10k shield for free on top of that, which is also not that bad. And if it's a grade 3, same situation as the grade 1, only in this case, the grade 3, even if you had it in hand, is still 0 shield value. So once again, this card could generate a lot of shield for one card. And, more importantly, it circumvents any nasty guard restriction, which starts to creep up more and more often with the latest support releases, especially with the grade 1 Desire Devil, which gives Baromagnes the potential of getting the Battledore effect on free attacks. Having a card like this could definitely help you to survive the turn a bit easier. So overall, I can see this definitely being played in Phantom Blaster Dragon, as this is a very good Blitz order. Now, talking about Baromagnes and Desire Devils, let's take a look at the 5th nation, which of course Darkshades, and we see once again more Baromagnes support as well as Greedon support. So let's first take a look at Greedon and then transition into Baromagnes. So first up, we see this grade 2 Desire Devil Beshi, and its effect is act on rearguard circle. If you have 5 or more units, cost counterblast 1, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets power plus 5k until the end of the turn. If your damage zone has 6 cards, it gets power plus 15k instead of plus 5k. Now, in my opinion, this is probably only Greedon support, because this probably won't see play in Baromagnes or in Bruce, as it doesn't really give you that much value. And even in Greedon, if I'm gonna be very honest, this is kind of underwhelming, because in most situations, it's just 5k power for a counterblast. Yes, the potential 15k is pretty good, especially if we're gonna calculate in the restand here. But your opponent can easily just prevent you of getting the condition of this card by just not giving you that 6 damage. It's pretty easy to play around this, as most decks definitely have the potential to shoot at least 2 damage in one turn. So this is pretty iffy, and once again, it's another counterblast cost, and the deck itself is pretty counterblast heavy, so I don't really value this card all too high, especially as soon as we have another card we're going to talk about very soon that basically does what this card does, but better. But before we're going to talk about that card, we've got a grade 3 Desire Devil in the likes of Desire Devil Gametsu, and Gametsu has the effect act on rearguard circle once a turn. If your Vanguard is Avaricious Demonic Dragon Greedon, cost counterblast 1, and discard a card from your hand. Choose a grade 3 or less card from your soul and call to the rearguard circle. Overall, this card is actually pretty useful. I don't know if it's going to be very powerful, very impactful, but it's useful in the sense that effectively every card in your hand now is also a card from your soul, because you can discard a card and then grab any card from your soul onto the field. Yes, you cannot activate unplaced from hand effects, but probably most cards in Greedon don't have that restriction, so you can just get any card on the field you need to have on the field for any play, and this card just gives you access to that on a consistent basis, which is nice. So this card could definitely see some play. I don't know if it's gonna be a mainstay in the deck, but it could definitely be a tech option for specific players out there that really like this particular ability. Now, moving on to the quote-unquote Baromagnes support, we've got this grade 1, which is Violet, Phantasm, Butterfly, Vanyu. And Vanyu has the effect, although when a unit is placed on a rearguard circle, if you have 5 or more units, cost, counterblast 1, and soul charge free. If your soul has 10 or more cards, choose one of your vanguards and it gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. Now, what I say with quote-unquote on Baromagnes support is that this could definitely be a playable card in Baromagnes, as it gives you free soul for a counterblast, and it gives your Vanguard extra 5k power, thus giving you a bit more pressure in the mid to early game. The one counterblast for free soul is actually really good value for Baromagnes, as they have very easy counters engine with Salvage Engraver, and they already play cards that basically do this type of thing, like the new order for Bruce from set 3, I believe it's called Pandemonium Tactics, but this card does something similar to that, only now you have it on the body so you can still attack with it. The 5 units condition can be heavy for Baromagnes, as you usually don't call a lot of cards to the field, but you can definitely facilitate this no problem. Now, the quote-unquote part comes from the fact that this card effectively reads also as a Greedon support card, because if you remember the grade 2 that we just talked about has basically the same skill as this, as they both cost a counterblast, both of the same condition. The only difference is that this card only gives 5k, but as I already explained, the grade 2 can easily play around that it never will give more than 5k. But what this card will give you is the free soul. And that free soul can be very important for Greedon, as you want to ramp up to that 10 soul as fast as possible to get the most value out of all your skills. So this could definitely be a nice card to improve the Greedon playstyle, so I can definitely see this being played in both builds. I won't see it in Bruce, because in Bruce I definitely don't see any value behind this, which is great because so far we've seen a lot of new Darkseid cards, and we have yet to see any card that actually support Bruce to some extent, which is interesting to say the least. And then keeping that train going, we've got a brand new grade 3, which is pure Baromagnes support, as we've got Aru Tate Haze Rapture. And her effect reads as, act on the rearguard circle once a turn. If your Vanguard is Master of Gravity Baromagnes, cost, put a card from your hand into your soul, and all of your front row units get power plus 5k until the end of turn. If your soul has 10 or more cards, they get power plus 10k instead of plus 5. So this effectively makes your first wave of attacks more threatening, as your power gain comes from the second wave of attacks, but that means your first couple of attacks are pretty weak. Overall, I think this can be a tech card. I don't really believe this is going to be a mainstay of the deck, as, again, your first couple of attacks aren't as important as it's your last attacks are going to matter, as that's where also your guard restricts start to come in play and all your shenanigans will happen. But it's not that bad to basically lose one card from hand to give 10k power to the field, as that could definitely help you to push for game if certain instances you need the extra pushing power. And the fact that you put the card into your soul instead of discarding it could help you to achieve the 50k soul requirement. So overall, the card definitely has its usage, and I can see some players deciding to tag this card into their Baromagnes list. But with it said, that's basically all the cards that we got this week. Overall, there were a couple of interesting cards, especially one for Phantom Blaster Dragon. The deck is starting to get very good solid cards. I don't really think the deck is going to be much stronger coming with this support, but it definitely helps the deck to at least elevate a little bit higher, because Phantom Blaster Dragon was a deck that really needed love, just like Eugene. But Eugene did get a lot of good cards in set 3, but now the question is, will it still get good cards in set 4? Because so far the support for Eugene is a bit iffy. But with it said, let me know in the comments down below which cards you like the most for your particular playstyle. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one!